What's going on, you loyal listeners? Thank you for tuning in to the L Squared podcast. I'm your host here, Luke Larson, and joining me today, as per the usual, my lovely and loquacious special guest will be assisting me in leisurely launching you into levity, the co-host of the monthly Monday musical segment, Haley Zacharias.
Woo! Good job.
Thanks.
I was your hype man.
Yeah, is that what that was? Okay, cool. Well, the video listeners will get a fun little treat there.
Yeah.
And they only got you right at the end. So they didn't see most of what I got to see. What I had a front row seat to.
Why? Did you not start recording right away?
No, I am recording. I have to cut this part out because when I'm talking, it's on me. It's not on you. It goes back and forth. You understand?
I have mine set on both. I was like,
yeah.
Like this.
So, well, good. I'm glad that we got there.
Yep.
So, well, we're here today to talk about another musical. We're doing it again.
Yes.
And this was one that I have been wanting to talk about since we started, that I've been excited to talk about since we started this segment. And just the other day, it was the 5th year anniversary of when this film came out. Yep. 2016's La La Land.
Woo! I have seen this one before, but I rewatched it. I was watching it last night and I had a friend text me at like 9 p.m. or snap me or something. It was like, I'm baking cookies. And I was like, sounds amazing. Bring some over. And they were like, okay, be there in 30 minutes. And so 9:30, which is late for us, just knock on the door. Nathan was like, who is that? I was like, that's Zach. He's bringing me cookies. He was like, what? Door opens. The guy's just got a fresh plate of hot cookies. It's like, here you go. And he looks and he's like, La La Land. This is a great movie.
Wow.
Yes, that was
okay.
I thought. I was like, it was a great movie.
Well, good. I'm glad we have his seal of approval on it. And that sounds like a pretty good viewing experience, honestly. Yeah.
They were like brown butter chocolate chip cookies.
Wow.
Real good.
Mine was a little different. I was alone in a dark room in silence, which is very comforting to me.
And I don't experience that very often.
Right. So that's our dichotomy. We're different people. And the two leads here were different at one point, and then they found ways to coexist. That was an attempt at a segue. But the IMDb plot synopsis is, while navigating their careers in Los Angeles, a pianist and an actress fall in love while attempting to reconcile their aspirations for the future. And this was directed by Damien Chazelle. This was his coming off of Whiplash. Did you ever see Whiplash?
Mm-mm.
Incredible film. Great movie. It's a jazz drum about a jazz drummer, and it's very good, very intense. And it won J.K. Simmons best supporting actor Oscar, and was nominated for Best Picture. So this was his next one. He was going to be doing a big musical. And so my hype for this was like relatively decent. Like Whiplash is great, but it's pretty intense. It's not a musical. And this one looked like, again, because we're doing this segment, it looked to me like a big musical that I probably wouldn't like very much. Like it looked like a capital M musical, and this was going to be a new one coming out. And it wasn't originally supposed to star Ryan Gosling. It was supposed to be Miles Teller, which I know. He was in Whiplash, and this was kind of the height of Ryan Gosling. Like he was in everything at this time. So I think some people kind of rolled their eyes, probably me included, of like, oh, great, another thing that Ryan Gosling's in, and Emma Stone too. But anyway, do you remember when you first saw this movie?
I'm pretty sure I just watched it at home. I'd heard good things about it. I generally like musicals. I think you told me that you liked it and that I would like it. Yeah. And I watched it and I was like, this is so fun. This is all the things I love about musicals. Over the top, fun dancing, scenes that take you out of reality and into this musical world where the set kind of pulls away and you have your big dance scene.
Yeah.
I like the ending, even though I don't like the ending, which almost makes you like the ending more.
Yes, so that's my biggest thing with this movie is I love the ending. So when I saw it, I was rolling my eyes so hard at the first act because it opened on this big dance sequence, Another Day of Sun. And it's like, I was just like,
I was like hooked. I was like, this,
right.
I'm like, this is gonna be stuck in my head. This is so catchy. This is so fun.
So colorful, all primary colors. They're opening, closing doors. They have different things. Yeah. And so I was just like, oh my God, I got 2 hours of this I have to sit through, So I was like, come on. And, and then like slowly but surely it started to grow on me. Once we got to Ryan Gosling's character, then I was like, okay, all right, I'm with it here, struggling.
Good job. I like his.
Very good. He's very charming, obviously, and underrated physical humor. But like, it's just like his story where he's like he's down and out, and he's just this struggling artist that is just a diehard fan of jazz and wants to revive it, even if he wants to open his own jazz club. And then Emma Stone is this actress that isn't getting anywhere, even though, so they both have big dreams. But just the more it went on with him and the more he came into it, I was like, okay, I'm liking it a little more and a little more. And then, but the ending is what made me love this movie. So like, spoiler alerts, if you haven't seen it, go see it. But
go watch it, then come finish it.
Yeah. So the ending, what I love about it, I mean, I guess if we want to talk more about it before we get to the ending, this movie it checks off all the boxes for me for a musical, like you said. But the number one thing is that this is chock full of bangers. There are so many good songs in this movie.
This soundtrack is so good.
It is so good. Like it starts off
one song that they pull throughout the whole thing and do it several different ways and several different times and makes you happy and sad.
Yep. City of Stars. That one won the Oscar that year for best song. Yeah, and it's so good. And there's so many good songs. Even the weird when he joins that band and he's not really happy. That song, like Start a Fire. I love that song.
Yeah.
Even though it's like weird, like I love it. It's so good. And all of them. So, but rewatching this, I was like, okay, there are some things that I could see people having problems with. And let's
hear it.
It is a bit fantastical, obviously. So that's sort of where it gets its leeway. But it is kind of like they're portraying like two, white people in LA that are just like, oh, I want to be a musician. I want to be an actress. And they haven't really done anything substantial. And then it's like, oh, well, now they're rich and they just have all their stuff come true. And it's like, I get that. It's a little, but it's also a musical. And so it is supposed to be kind of fantastical because it is a bit unrealistic.
Yeah. I think they did it subtly enough that it didn't pull you totally away from the story. Some do it really like abruptly, like into the story, and then all of a sudden big musical number, the transition is really harsh, and then back, and then try to make you believe that it's super realistic. I don't know, I feel like they handled it really well.
Yeah.
And there's something about the Nathan actually brought this up, there's something about the settings that are always a little bit unrealistic. Even in the moments that are super realistic, the sky has just this unreal glow or this perfect sunset that almost looks like a set behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, and then when they transition into the fantasy kind of song, then it's not as much of a transition. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is kind of a set, as the pieces are being pulled away and they do their dance number.
Yeah, which is definitely like an homage to the classic musicals like West Side Story and all those, when they're these huge sound stages and they are all on a big set. They're not in a Brooklyn street, or in this case LA, they're not on Sunset Boulevard. It is a huge set. Yeah. And that's cool because it's like put a lot of effort into it. Obviously, the choreography is great, the music is great, the set pieces are great. But like this, what I took away from this too, what I wrote down was like, this La La Land has balls, because like this should have been just like your basic whatever fun in the sun musical. We're in LA and our dreams are coming true, but they had the grit to show like partially like that both of these people struggling. For one thing, they spent quite a bit of time showing the struggle of both these people, but then also like, it's this romantic thing. They join together, they're having fun, experience this new relationship, and it doesn't work out. Like they fight, and they're realistic fights, for the most part. And it's like all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is like real stuff. And it balances that, where it's like this whole movie is about like these people, it's wish fulfillment, but it's like these people like finding their dreams and they want to fulfill their dreams, and it's not always easy and clean cut to be able to get there. And I love that they dealt with that. Like Ryan Gosling's character doesn't really want to work with this friend or this guy that he used to know from college that's offering him a job as a musician, as a touring musician, to get a lot of money and be working on his music. And she says, well, that's a great opportunity. You should work for him and start making money, and you can open your own club. And he's like, I don't want to do that because this guy is the worst. But then he sort of feels pressured to do it because he sort of interprets like that's what she wants him to do. And so he does it. And then he sort of realizes like he almost gets a little comfortable because he's making money for the first time and he's like actually playing, and then she is like really trying to get her thing going and it's not working. And then all of a sudden there's this rift happening between the two of them. And it's just great that it's like, well, we're trying to, I thought we were trying to get to our dreams here. Like, isn't that what we're trying? And it's that dinner scene is so great, where it's like he's been on the road and he surprises her when he comes home and he like makes supper and it's romantic. You're like, oh, they get to have this one night together. He's got to go back on tour, and then they just have the fight. And it's like, man, but that's like in this musical, that's all like Another Day of Sun, and there's all these big sets to have like that stuff.
Yeah, it is good.
It's good.
Don't you think they could have worked it
out? Well, okay, let's talk about the ending then.
Okay,
so that's
isn't it she's gonna do you want to say how it ends?
Yeah. So basically that fight happens, and then they just sort of, it just doesn't work from that point on. And what happens is they divulge, she gets a great offer to, based on her one woman show, to star in this sort of production that could be a big thing. And so she does that, and then you find out eventually does his dream where he opens this jazz club finally, and it's a cool thing. And the ending is that her, as this big successful actress with her different husband, they are on a date night, and they just pull off by chance, go to a jazz club, and it's his jazz club, and he sees her and he plays this song. And it's sort of a sad song, but and then as it plays, it sort of reminisces as far as like, potentially what could be. And what that shows is like what their life could have been if they would have stayed together. But then what it showed me was like, well, neither one of them really would have gotten their dream if they would have stayed together. Like they could have been together and they could have had sort of a modest life, but neither one of them would have got to have their dream. And and that's okay, but in this reality they're in, they both got their dream, and she left, and they didn't end up together. So, I mean, are you saying that you think they could have worked it out? So you wish they would have ended up together?
Kind of. I mean, obviously you're rooting for them the whole time. That's and they were not bad together.
Yeah.
And how do you know, like, how do you know that they couldn't have stuck it out and she made it big and they have enough money that he does get to open his jazz club? How do you know she didn't say no to that? Because didn't she have to go to Paris for the big?
Yeah. And
gig?
she would have had to move there, I think.
Yeah.
So then
How do
he
you
would have
know?
had to move there.
Yeah. How do you know he couldn't have started something in Paris? How do you know she couldn't have said no to that and gotten an even bigger deal the next day?
Yeah.
And
But
how do you know that either of them are happy? Like, yeah, you could have said, well, he got to have his dream of a jazz club, but is he alone every night and sad and wishing, well, yeah, and now I have this life I wanted, but no one to share it with?
yeah, probably. And yeah, I mean, she seems like she's she's at least content in her marriage, and she's got a lot of money.
Yeah.
But yeah, they share that final look when she walks out, and they just kind of think what could have been. But that's what I love about it, is because that, like, for this musical, for these two not to end up together,
Yeah.
makes it unique.
Yeah.
And it's like,
well, it is life. Like, you don't know.
Yeah,
like,
you don't know.
Come to a point that you're like, if I make this decision, my life goes this way. If I make this decision, my life goes this way. But without a true knowledge of what's gonna like, they came to that point where they had to say, do I say no to the job in Paris? Is that gonna make my life better or worse? Do I say no to going on tour with the band that I'm not super excited about? Does that make my life better or worse? That's realistic. And then you always play the what if. Well, what if she would have said no and then didn't get a better gig and they still break up anyway, and then she doesn't get to be with him or live her dream?
Yeah. That's why I love it. It's because of this conversation that we're having. Because yeah, I mean, that is life. Because there are times where you make those decisions and you always look back on it, and you can kind of romanticize anything. And so you could say, yeah, it would have worked out. But I just really appreciate that they didn't. And it felt okay that they didn't. Like, it was sort of she was in a relationship at the time when they met, and she kind of left that guy because he was like this, all of a sudden, this new exciting thing. And, another spoiler for you guys out there, the rebound usually doesn't work. It's usually the one after the rebound that'll work. Just a tip for just a tip for everybody out there. So since he was kind of the rebound, that's usually like and then you realize, okay, maybe it's this. So that's also a little bit realistic too, because she was they must have been, her previous guy must have been together a while, it seemed. Yeah. And, and so this was just kind of a new thing. And then sometimes you put your career first, and they were both career driven people, I guess. And it's tough because, yeah, you can look at it a couple different ways, but maybe it seemed like Ryan Gosling's character was the type that isn't really the type of person who's in relationships, maybe doesn't do that well in them. So I mean, yeah, it's like,
artists are a whole different kind of people too.
I bet you felt that sting where she's like, since when do you care what people think about you? And he said, you're an actress. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Did that hurt a little bit?
I understood.
Yeah.
But I think and obviously in Hollywood and LA, there's probably a lot of, two artists in a relationship. But a lot of times artists are kind of drifters and kind of, creative and kind of go with the flow and go on a whim. And sometimes maybe do better with a more, logical personality. And so there might be something to say to that too, that they both, have this creative spirit that doesn't work with another creative spirit, that they both needed to just go their own ways to be more of the person that they were made to be.
Yeah, because the guy she ends up with seems like just a normal, boring dude. No offense to him.
Like a business dude.
Yeah. And it's sort of interesting that, like, he is a jazz fan. Like she did take on that personality. Like she did love jazz after him.
Yeah.
And that he was like, oh, this is a jazz club. Let's go in here. And it's like, it's kind of weird. But also, I want to hear the conversation in the car after that, after they leave the club. Like, does that get brought up?
Yeah. Does he already know about him? And then they leave and she goes, that's
him. That guy.
You know, does he not know about him at all? Does she say something? Does she not say anything?
Because like their relationship wasn't a year. It wasn't even a year, right? It was like 9 months or something.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like it's not like it was a huge thing. So she could, by rights, probably not even said much about it.
But I was talking to Nathan about that. And he was like, if you live with someone, if you move in together, it's a serious relationship.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like it would be weird to marry someone and not have that conversation with them at some point, the people that have lived with me.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Yeah. Hey, that was that guy, by the way. And he picked it too. The husband picked the place to go. I wonder if they go back. Do you think they go back to that jazz club ever again?
And there's got to be quite a bit of time that's passed. Like,
yeah, at least a few years. Yeah.
They have a kid and stuff.
I think that said, was it 3 years, 5 years, or something like that?
I guess it depends on what kind of emotional closure they both got from the relationship. Because my ideal ending is they all become friends, right?
She stays married, and then he becomes like a friend of a couple friend.
Yeah, and they like go to his jazz club quite a bit and keep in touch with him, and maybe he gets a girlfriend and they go on double dates. Please tell me that's realistic.
Ooh, I don't know. That sounds real messy to me. Whew. I mean, maybe like that look they shared at the end. I don't know if they had much closure based on that. It'd be different if
true, but
yeah. I mean, it'd be different if at the end they were like, let's go say hi. And she's like, oh, hey, how are you doing? This is my husband. And this is that guy that broke my heart that I was telling you about before. Yeah. So, I mean, that
go see counselors now, work through this. Because at that point, I don't want them to be together. Right. Like, even though it goes through like their life and how, it could have turned out. And you kind of like, part of you is like, oh, how sad. But I don't, like, she's married now. Like, I don't want it to be that they start this relationship secretly or.
Yeah. But there's something to be said about like, they had their time. They had that little bit together, and it was an important time for both of them. And they both learned a lot, were able to grow a lot from it. And it was probably ultimately a positive experience, I would think. And they had their time, the only reason anything has meaning is because there's an expiration date on it. Life has meaning because there's an ending to it, because it's not permanent. So, that gives it some meaning, that it's like, well, they had that time and it meant something. And then they moved on. There's some wisdom for you, loyal listeners.
That's good.
Thanks. Well, we might as well end it there, I guess. But I want to hear everybody's thoughts, because this is why I love La La Land. This is why I wanted to have the conversation, was because the ending is so good.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, was there another movie we saw this year that was like the same producer or something as La La Land?
Probably.
Do you remember which one it was?
Which one would they slap it on? Probably In the Heights, I'm guessing.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it was both. Yeah, it was probably both Warner Brothers. So I would assume they probably at least one same producer. But for marketing, they would definitely do that. Hey, this is a musical. Hey, remember that other musical you liked?
That brought you La La Land.
Yeah, I think they were both Warner Brothers.
That was a question. And I liked both of them. So.
Yep. Agreed. So go check it out. It's a very good musical, and it's unique, which is why I really appreciate it. So, okay. Well, goodbye. Till next time.